Welcome to the Tangent Podcast. It's good to be back with you here
Howdy, y'all.
on a beautiful Tuesday night.
So
Good. How are you?
beautiful.
Things are going well. I got a beautiful cookie sent from my neighbors next door, so I'm enjoying myself.
Jealous.
Mm-hmm.
I have a protein cookie, but it's terrible.
I have chocolate orange over here.
Those are good.
Yeah, they are.
All right. So we are actually getting on track and getting some episodes out. So hopefully we're able to get this one out by Monday, like planned.
Weekly content now.
Weekly on Monday.
Gonna be for real. We know we have promised you many times. Consider this the fulfillment of that promise.
So many empty promises.
Yeah, there has been a lot. But Monday, unless we say otherwise, there couldn't be some. So there's probably gonna be some off weeks or something like that. But
Also, thank you to those of you who viewed our new YouTube platform this week. We're on YouTube, so if you want to see our beautiful faces, then check us out there as well.
Then don't look at YouTube, because there's no beauty.
So, speak for yourself. Speak for yourself, pal.
Hey, I speak the truth. People can't hate me for speaking the truth.
to 11 views and 4 subscribers. So go ahead and
Nice.
subscribe to our channel if you want to do that. We're thinking of, if we get enough people interested, we might even do like live episodes where you can like chat with us while we're doing the episode. That might be fun. But
How cool would it be to tell your friends, like, oh my gosh, I chatted with the guys from the Tangent Podcast, and they're going to be like, oh my gosh,
said
I
my
love the Tangent Podcast.
they said my username
Yeah.
on stream.
And then we could set up a paranormal network of people reporting on site across the country.
Be our eyes and ears out in the world for
Just
little to no
imagine-
pay.
Just imagine the clout you'll get with your friends for telling them you spoke with the hosts of Tangent Podcast.
I thought clout was a bad thing.
Clout? No, clout's a good thing.
Oh, what am I thinking of then?
Gout?
Gout is bad. All right, that reminds me though. Do you guys have stripper names?
Rumpled foreskin.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
terrible.
that's usually the best one to go with.
Dude, I was gonna
foreskin.
I was gonna go with gingivitis. I don't know, man. It's just got a catchy ring to it, don't you think?
It doesn't change from like the actual thing.
It doesn't need to, dude. Angel, Stardust, gingivitis.
I mean, maybe if you're a redhead and then you say like gingivitis, like okay, but
Nope, just gingivitis. Gout. When you said gout, I was like, that'd be a good stripper name too. Introducing
no,
gingivitis and gout, the dynamic duo.
no, that would be so bad. And then there's gonna be some poor stripper out there named Gout.
Oh, my stomach hurts now. Oh. That's funny. Let's see. Best stripper names.
Oh, that is. I don't know if you want to go down that hole.
Keep it PG rated.
Unforgettable names.
Ooh, I got one.
Oh.
What if your name was the Rabbit Hole?
Rabbit hole.
The rabbit hole. That's just dumb. Cricket. Thumper.
So this is getting like slightly Disney now.
I guess.
The Phantom Zone.
Hampton Roads. Apparently that's one of the top 10 stripper names. Apparently there's a lot of people named Hampton Roads out there that are...
Anyway,
Yeah,
let's
that's
probably
weird.
move on.
Yeah, Alan's not doing it for me.
Gingivitis takes the cake, though.
I'm telling you, man, it's a good one. or something like vitamin C.
Vitamin C.
Anyway, what are we talking about today?
Well, do we have an encounter, first of all?
Yes, do we have space news, first of all?
I don't think we have space news today.
No space news today. So sad.
It is sad because ever since Mike, the Rocket Man, do you remember Mike's last name?
Mike,
Mike was a flat earther that
Mad
was
Mike Hughes.
Mad Mike Hughes. He's was a flat earther that was trying to prove that the Earth was flat by making his own rocket to get high enough to see that the Earth was flat, and blew himself up.
We talked about him in a couple episodes, but that would have been 2 years ago now.
Yeah, probably a couple years ago.
That was exciting. Those were exciting times, fellas. Exciting times.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, I'll tell you, he definitely was the pioneer for Craigslist water heater powered spacecraft. So
I still can't believe it was just a water heater.
I know.
I wonder how much traffic went up on Craigslist when he was saying that.
All right. Well, here's one. I just googled space news, and apparently the Falcon 9 launches Italian radar satellite today. Not sure what that means, but the Falcon 9 placed an Italian radar mapping satellite in orbit after 4 days of delays.
The Italians are getting ready to strike.
Now, I don't. Maybe call me paranoid. I'm a little paranoid, but I feel like we should probably just only allow the SpaceX program to work for the United States. Maybe.
It's a private company; they can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
Elon Musk is from Africa, so
That's true.
Oh.
I'm trying to see what the point of this satellite is, if it says.
It seems like what's the point of any satellite going up these days? It's all the same thing.
It was it successfully landed back on the ground after 8 minutes. 8 minutes after liftoff. That's pretty impressive. Put a satellite in orbit and then landed within 8 minutes.
Now, Is that the satellite landing or is that SpaceX rockets?
That's the Falcon 9.
Right. So, it's impressive, but still nothing to say about the satellite. Everything to say about SpaceX.
Apparently this thing doesn't do anything, just radar. Radar's boring.
it's so that the Italians can catch all the impastas. Ha. Ha ha.
But, okay, that was actually really good.
All right. Let's move on to the encounter of the day. All right, I'm going to throw it on screen. Which one of you wants to be covered by it? Because I got to cover one of you, too.
You can
I guess I
cover
can cover
me.
myself. Yeah, get out of here, Austin. I think I covered Ryan in the last week's. Okay, this one is called Heard My Name Called Out in a Cemetery. And it goes... something in my throat. Oh my gosh. Ugh, I almost died. It says, back in high school, I had a close friend named Lucas. We were friends since elementary school and had many good times together. One day, I was at another friend's house when his mother asked, "Isn't this your friend?" while pointing at the obituaries. I was in shock no one had told me. After making a few calls, I found out what happened. Apparently, he spent 4 days in the ICU before he passed away. What made matters worse was my job wouldn't let me off for the funeral because he wasn't family. I was devastated. Never had I lost a friend before. Turns out he got in a rollover on his 21st birthday. First chance I got, I was determined to go visit Lucas. Upon arriving to the cemetery, I find out that the office was already closed. I wasn't going to leave without seeing him. I spent about 20 minutes going row by row in an area that I felt was right. All of a sudden, I hear his voice clear as day loudly call my name. My eyes tear up and I go in the direction of his voice and find his grave not too far away. I sat a long time and said my goodbyes with him. I'll never forget that day and was so happy he helped me find him. I was heartbroken to lose such a great friend and went to visit Lucas every birthday for 10 years.
Man, that's like... It's not an encounter. That's just like something I would read from Chicken Soup for the Soul. That's kind of sweet at the end.
Feel good.
Yeah, what's wrong with having a feel-good encounter?
Yeah, they don't all have to be scary.
Yeah, that's why
I don't think I've never heard us do a feel good encounter.
We
We've done
have.
a couple. We've done
Yeah,
a
there was
couple on here.
on a Christmas day. There was like a flame, wasn't it? Like a candle flame that went on, and he knew it was his father that had passed away like a year before, or something like that.
Right.
I don't remember the exact details, but
Yeah. Well,
not
we
all
talk-
encounters need to be bad.
we talk frequently about the good and the bad side too. You know, there's both sides of it, so it's kind of nice to switch things up every once in a while.
Ask any religion; they'll tell you there's good paranormal encounters.
And we got a good one today.
Yeah, but you know,
That's pretty cool.
It's good to get a change every once in a while. You know, we deserve to. Not all spirits are bad.
Just, you know,
We
majority.
we want to make sure we get both sides of the story. You know, we don't want to be super biased.
I like it. I like it.
Good story. Good story.
I don't know his name, but hopefully Lucas is doing well wherever he is, whatever you believe in.
Wait, Lucas was the one that died, or the Lucas was the friend?
We don't know the friend's name, anonymous, but Lucas was the one that passed away on his
God bless
21st
you, Lucas.
birthday. Sad.
It is sad. You guys better know right now, full disclaimer, if I die at a young age, I am definitely going to haunt both of you.
I need the I need the content.
I thought you were going to say that specifically, if you die at a young age, it wasn't of natural causes.
It was aliens, I
If
swear.
I die within 3 weeks, Austin is prime suspect number 1. Don't believe his alibi.
So what are we talking about today?
We are talking about reincarnation.
Is this a southern term or southern thing that
It's just way
happens?
too close to reincarnation. What incarnation?
Yep. It's anything is just fun to say in a southern accent. Just give it a try. Give it a try with any word, and it's just more fun.
Ham bone.
Right? Gingivitis. Right? Okay, well, we're talking about
Sweet
reincarnation.
tea and whiskey.
All right. So, reincarnation. First of all, I wanted to give just kind of an overview of where the idea comes from. So, it's been around for a long time. Mainly is credited to the beliefs of Hinduism and Buddhism. And there's, I think in the world, the count now is at least over 1 billion people claim to believe in Hinduism. And most of those, I would say, are of Eastern or Oriental descent, coming from the areas where Hinduism and Buddhism are popular. But it's becoming a more popular belief among even Christians, too, where there was a study done in the U.S. that, and I don't know how these numbers were corroborated, but the study said that of the U.S., there's 33% of people that believe in reincarnation, and of the Christian population, about 20 to 25% of the Christian population believe in reincarnation as well. So
You said this was in the United States or the UK?
in the United States. So it's becoming a more prevalent idea. And of that 33%, 10% of them said that they even recalled their past lives that they were before they became reincarnated into their current form. So what reincarnation is, the main idea comes again from Hinduism and Buddhism. And so particularly in Hinduism, there's these kind of basic principles, or the four, I'm going to butcher this pronunciation, but the four Purusarthas, and they're kind of 4 goals or like 4 aims for human life. And the pursuit of these 4 goals is thought to provide one with like enlightenment and freedom from like the stresses and woes of human life. So the first one is Dharma, which is like kind of like living in harmony with your fellow human beings, and kind of like the set of rules to live with other people and live your life on earth. And then there's Artha, which is the pursuit of material prosperity. So not just like sustenance, but also prosperity through providing service to others and like serving your government, serving your country, doing things like that. And you therefore achieve prosperity through your work that you do while you're on earth. then there's Kama, which is like the pursuit of good pleasures in life. And then there's Mosha or Masha, I don't know how to say it, or which is kind of equivalent to Nirvana in Buddhism. And this is like the spiritual liberation or kind of like salvation, I guess, like enlightenment. And so in Hinduism, they believe that you have these multiple lives. Like I think I heard that Hinduism, like they believe you can have up to 52 million different like iterations or reincarnations of life. And each one of those reincarnations provides you with a new perspective or a new like way of living to help enlighten your soul and to help you grow and like progress. And so they believe that people can start as like a blade of grass, as like the simplest life form, and then from there you progress on to something else. Like you'd go from a blade of grass to being, for example, like a worm or something, and then from there to being a bird. And so each time you're taking on this new life form and learning new things, and your soul and your, I guess, your knowledge and everything like that is growing. You're becoming more enlightened. You're growing closer to, I guess, your creator or your God or whatever you want to call it. And then the state of Moshe, that fourth kind of tenet, um, is what helps you break that cycle of reincarnation, or helps you kind of liberate yourself from that when you become enlightened and you become fully, how do I explain it? You fully enlightened and fully, like you've progressed fully to the point where you can now break that cycle of reincarnation and you are able to just go on to be peaceful and I guess live forever at that point. So from what I understand, that's how the Hindus believe, is that every reincarnation of your life helps you learn and progress more to that moksha, or that enlightenment. It's kind of an interesting concept, but so they believe in past lives and future lives, and that every life gives you new experience. And so I kind of wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that, like, because every major religion has this concept, or I guess Christianity and most major religions have this concept of like an afterlife, of there being something, your soul or your essence, whatever you want to call it, carrying on to this life after. But then this reincarnation also states that you have lives before, which is also common in some denominations of Christianity, showing that there is a pre-existence before you come to this earth. And so, like, what are your guys' thoughts on that? Like, do you think that reincarnation is possible, or like what are your thoughts?
I've never thought about it before, if I'm being completely honest. I grew up Christian, and I don't know, reincarnation was never even mentioned, I guess. What's resurrection was, though, because obviously Christianity is all about that. Anyway, I never honestly even thought about it until about 4 minutes ago. But I was just looking up a little bit more about what you were saying, and apparently, a human is the only being who has one complete soul to himself. Someone asked Quora, does a soul have 84 Laka birth? I don't know what that means. I had no idea. But what he said, this guy said, a human is the only being on Earth who has one complete soul to himself. This happens after 8,400,000 births as lower life forms such as rocks, plants, and animals. Because all of these lower forms of life have shared souls. 200 million mineral particles could share one common soul. 1 million plants of wheat could share one common soul. 2,000 elephants could have one common soul. A human has one full soul to himself. This means that one human has a full consciousness. He has earned this by going through 8.4 million lower forms.
This is all coming from Quora.
Quora, yeah. So this is just, you guys know what Quora is.
Yeah,
basically it's Yahoo
it's gospel.
Answers.
Like this is total truth.
So
like,
this came from a fellow named Pranav Duwan. I'm sure I said that wrong, but I'm guessing he comes from that religion, so he probably knows more than us.
Does it say what religion?
Interesting.
Hinduism.
Oh, okay. Well,
specifically Hinduism in India.
what I specifically like about that is that there's a general, like, I think it's easy for us as humans to think like we're top of the food chain, we rule the world, and to not care about kicking a rock down the road. But if you genuinely believe that there are spirits that are in each one of these things, it kind of makes you stop and think about, oh, what is the essence or the purpose of some of these lesser beings or lesser items in the earth, but it brings an overall connection to our environment.
Yeah.
I
Makes me
mean,
feel bad for
even
kicking all those rocks and stepping on all those leaves. I like to hear the crunch, you
crunchy
know?
leaves. Yeah,
Crunchy
there is
leaves are one of my
nothing.
simple joys in life.
Mhm.
Autumn is just a time of death, constant death.
Okay, but here's the thing. Does every human experience this, or do you have to be like a believer and accepted into this religion to be granted this life? I don't know.
So the cool thing with Hinduism, and I don't know much about Buddhism. I've done most of this research through the Hinduistic, is that a word? Hinduistic
Hinduism?
side. And Hinduism isn't really, from what I understand, it's not super strict in that like you become indoctrinated to be strictly Hindu. Like it's more kind of a way of living, like an overall way of living rather than like a strict set of rules. So like some religions, even Christianity, you know, have certain rules or certain things like certain commandments that are set out that you have to fulfill, you know, to achieve salvation or to achieve that afterlife or you know eternal life with God. But with Hinduism, they kind of accept every religion as just like a good path, and so rather than saying like, "Hey, you need to be Hindu to be saved," or to like to be you know have this reincarnation experience, their mindset is more just like, "Hey, everything that's good is good. This is our belief that every religion is like a good path, takes people down a good path, and it's just kind of like the overall experience that you have is more Hindu than like a set of set rules and commandments." So I thought that was interesting.
So as far as my opinion on the subject, so from a little bit that I was able to read, it seems like there is some back and forth or some gray area of how some people are defining what reincarnation means technically according to them or according to all religions as a whole. And a lot of what I've there were a lot of examples where they were putting Christianity into that area of believing in reincarnation and using examples saying that a man must be born again in order to enter into the kingdom of heaven. But like Jack said, my understanding of that is completely different with resurrection because it's you have your body now, and then in the after you die with the resurrection, you gain that same body. Whereas my understanding of reincarnation is it's a completely different body that you're going into. You could have been a man before, now you're a woman, or you could have been an American before, now you're an African, or a rock before, and now you're a lobster.
Rock lobster.
Do, 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 do. Okay. So interesting thoughts. I think the general idea is that your soul or your essence kind of continues on through various life forms to gain experience and gain enlightenment. So I wanted to go over some really crazy, like mind blowing stories about possible reincarnation.
Are you
Yeah, because
possibly on
if
ranker.com?
I am not.
Okay, because I got some pretty crazy stories on here too, I just found.
because I was gonna say if this is like it would seem like if this is a constant cycle that all of us life forms are continuing to come back into the same space and share that space with each other, there's got to be some overlap that we're able to kind of see some of this happening.
I hope this probably goes without saying, but I kind of want to come out and say we are not advising for or against any religion at all.
Right.
We're just kind of learning about a part of some religions, and none of them are right or wrong in our mind. You can do whatever you want, kind of thing. We're just kind of learning. That's all.
Right. And I'm probably ignorant to a lot of the views of Hinduism. So if I've misstated anything, that's just my ignorance and what I've understood from my research. So please don't hold that against me if I've said anything.
Did you guys know Christianity is the biggest religion on Earth? I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
I thought it was like second or third. Christianity with 2.4 billion followers, then Islam with 1.9, Hinduism with 1.2, Buddhism with 500 million, and folk religion with 400 million. Yeah, 400 million.
I think they got good bluegrass.
Yeah.
That's interesting, because I remember growing up learning about religions, and Christianity wasn't number one, so that's changed.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure when I was a kid it wasn't. Or maybe maybe they told me differently. I don't know. Anyway, let's hear some of those stories, Austin. I'm really curious.
So the very first one that I ever heard that really introduced me to the concept of reincarnation was there was this little boy, I think he was 5 or 6, and he had a very distinct birthmark on his head. And one day he told his mom, like, "Oh yeah, I was murdered." And she's like, "Wait, what?" And he's like, "Yeah, I was murdered. Like in my past life, I got murdered." She's like, "What are you talking about?" And so she got concerned, and she ended up calling the police. And the boy was like, "Yeah, I know who murdered me. Like, I know where my body is. I can take you to where my body is." So the mom calls the police. The police come, and they go over to a neighbor's house a few houses down, and they confront the neighbor, and he denies it initially. But then the boy's like, "No, my body's right over here." So then they dig up the ground and they find a skeleton, and the skeleton had been hacked with an axe at the exact point on the head where the kid had his very distinct birthmark.
And this is just a story that you remember from a while ago?
I found it on this website I'm looking at. I found it. It said a reincarnated murder victim returned to confront his killer at the age of 4.
Yeah, I think he's from Turkey, if I'm not mistaken.
When Karanfil Tumus of Turkey was pregnant with a son in the 50s.
So yeah, he led the police to the skeleton, and they dug it up, and it had an axe wound in the head, right where this kid had his birthmark. And so then when they found the skeleton, the neighbor finally admitted to murdering.
This one says he was shot.
This guy. Oh, does it?
Yeah, this one says Fesley had indeed been shot by a neighbor, but the neighbor claimed it was a hunting accident. But he insisted his past self had been killed due to an argument over mule grazing on the neighbor's field.
Wait. So the kid said, "I was killed," and then the murderer's like, "Yeah, I'm sorry, it was me," blah, blah, blah. And the kid's like, no, it wasn't you. It was like some other guy in a field?
No, it was him. But the guy who killed him claimed it to be a hunting accident.
But then the kid said, "No, it was a disagreement that we had."
Right. It's like, no, it wasn't a hunting accident. You killed me over an argument over mule grazing in the neighbor's field.
This was what year? 50s?
The 50s, it says. And that's just one of many stories on this page. I'm sure you've got more.
Yeah, so the next one, this one's pretty crazy. As a parent, this stuff would freak me out super bad. Like, I always hear of kids saying, like, weird crap,
Do you have the 9/11 one?
I've heard the 9/11 one.
Oh, but I'm going to see if I can find that one.
If you can find it while I tell this one, because that one's crazy too. This one's kind of similar though. So there was this kid. His name was James Madison Leininger. He was born on April 10th of 98, and like for his first 2 years of life, he seemed like perfectly normal. Nothing odd about him. But then when he was 2, he was really good at talking. Like he was pretty. What's the word? He could speak really well when he was
articulate?
Really young. Yeah, he was very articulate. Obviously, I'm not articulate, but he's very articulate at a young age, and And so when he was 2, he started to have these really like vivid nightmares at night, and he would just kick and scream and like thrash around in his crib. And he would always scream like similar things. He would scream like airplane crash, plane on fire, little man can't get out. And so these nightmares would just go on and on like every single night, and he would be screaming this for like an hour at a time. And his parents like couldn't calm him down. And so like these went on for a while. But pretty soon like other things started happening. So like one day, this happened between the ages of like 2 and 4 or 2 and 5. Like all these things started kind of coming together. And so it started with these nightmares, and then one day they're passing a toy store, and James's mom was like looking in the window, and she saw this World War II like fighter plane toy in the window, and she was like looking and saying like how detailed it was and everything. And she's like, oh, look, there's even like a bomb on the bottom of it. And the kid, he's like, no, Mom, that's not a bomb, that's a drop tank. And he would point out all these features of these planes that not even his parents knew about. Like he knew intimate details of all these like World War II fighter planes, and he knew all the different parts of them. And they said that when he would play with his toy planes, he would do like pre-flight checks of the whole plane, and he would like do all these things to make sure the plane was functioning correctly, and like say all these things that only like a pilot of that plane would know. And one of the details that they said is he would always say like, oh man, the tires on my Corsair are flat. The Corsair was like one of the fighter planes in World War II for the US. And he would say, oh man, the tires are flat. And so later on the parents looked up that detail, and apparently the Corsairs had a problem with the tires like going flat on the airstrips all the time. And so he just knew all these little details that like only a pilot or only someone that would be around these planes would know. And parents like found it really odd because they didn't like watch any World War II movies. They didn't like have World War II stuff laying around. And this kid's like 2 or 3, and he knows all these details. And so then he just becomes like super obsessed over the next couple years with World War II. Like his dad takes him to the Flight Museum in Dallas, and like he's just like totally mesmerized, and he refuses to leave this World War II display at this museum. And so he begins like drawing pictures of fighter planes, and he's like talking about them all the time. He's asking his parents for toy fighter planes, and he'd like run around the house and have like all these imaginary battles with his toys. And he would call, like he knew what all the planes were, like the Wildcats and the Corsairs. And then he knew what the enemy planes were too. Like he would call them by the slangs, like they were called like Zeeks or Bettys. And so he would call them by their nicknames. And so the parents looked it all up, and they like found out that all this information that he knew was correct. And so they're super confused. And he was still like 2 or 3 at this point. And so he continued to have his nightmares, and like it got worse and worse. And you'd always say the same thing, like plane on fire, little man can't get out. And so one day his mom asked him like, who's the little man? And he said, it was me. And so he said that in his nightmares, he's flying this Corsair plane, and he took off from a boat called the Natoma. And his dad's like, well, that Natoma sounds like a Japanese plane. And he gets super like ticked off at his dad. He's like, no, it's not a Japanese plane. It's an American plane. Or like an American boat, like an aircraft carrier. And his dad's like, whoa, okay. So he goes and looks it up, and it was this American aircraft carrier. And so he keeps telling of like one of his friends that was a pilot too, named Jack Larson. And he said, we both died in a battle. And his dad's like, where did you die? And he points at a map, and he pointed over Iwo Jima. And his dad's like, okay, this is really weird. So he looks it up, and there were 2 men who died in an aircraft battle over Iwo Jima named Jack. One of them was Jack Larson. And I couldn't remember what this kid's name was, like who his reincarnation was. But so all these details are correct that they're looking up. And his dad's like, well, who killed you? And he's like, it was the Japs. And he's like, well, how do you know it was the Japs? And he's like, well, the big red sun on the sides of the plane that shot me down. Like I saw the big red sun. And so they're like trying to ask him like, where have you learned all this information? He's like, I was there. Like this was me. And so it just like the parents went to the extent of like finding veterans even that had served on the USS Natoma Bay. Like they talked to these veterans, and it like the kid even would name his action figures. Like he named 3 of them Billy, Walter, and Leon. And the parents had found 3 of this boy's squad mates that were Leon Connor, Walter Devlin, and Billy Peeler. And they had also died in this battle. And so this kid's just like recognizing all these weird details and like is just really crazy. That was pretty much it. But he knew all these intimate details of these planes, of like people that he served with, where he was shot down, who he was shot down by. Like it just insane. Like I don't know what to make of it, but pretty crazy stuff. So that
you finish, Austin.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to get into another story. So if you have anything else,
go for it.
So a story that I had heard of is about a girl named Shanti Devi, who is an Indian girl that...
Indian or Native American?
Thank you for the clarification. Not Native American.
Gotcha.
She is from the country of India.
Gotcha.
Born in Delhi, India. And so this is in the 1930s. And over time, she continued to tell her parents that her real home isn't Delhi, India, but is Mathura, India, where her husband lived, which is about 145 kilometers. Don't know how many miles that is.
4.
Look it up, Jack.
How many kilometers?
145. I'm guessing like 60?
90.
So close. Not really. So, yes. Born and raised, or at least born and raised in a Hindu family, and then without going and wasting too much time to go into that detail, it looks like, yes, leader of Hindu. So, Shanti then gets this investigation done by Mahatma Gandhi, and Mahatma Gandhi determines that she is in fact the reincarnation of Lugdi Devi. So there's 2 other reports of her kind of sharing the story more in detail, and there's a few different books that are written over the whole thing. But it's a crazy story of this kid that got all of this press attention and was able to answer a lot of questions. And some of the things that I heard from other podcasts or other people talking about it is that she was able to recall like certain hiding places in their old house where her widower husband now lived. And she was able to say, yeah, there's this special hiding spot where either your wallet was hidden, or we hid money, or we hid these significant things. And she's able to recall these details and point these things out that no one else is able to, that you would think would be able to point those things out.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Dang.
That was one of the most famous cases that I've heard of for sure, especially since it happened like in India. It's one of the most like publicized cases that I've seen.
And you got Gandhi there.
Yeah. That I mean, a lot of this to me is unexplainable. I don't know yet whether I believe in reincarnation or not, or what that really means to me, like whether it's reincarnation or whether it's something else. But this next story that I wanted to share is another one that just kind of blows my mind. This one has even more. Basically, the kid remembers more. One official count that I saw was that he was able to verify like 55 different intimate details of his past life.
55.
So it was this kid, his name's Ryan. He's from, I think, Oklahoma. He was 4 or 5 when this happened, and his parents noticed that he would often, like when he was playing with other kids, he would yell like action or like scene, things like that. Like he's like directing a movie type thing. And he would just like randomly out of nowhere, he would perform these like intricate tap dance routines and things like that in front of the family. And so they're like, where is he getting all this stuff? And then one night he wakes his parents up like terrified, and he told them that he thought his heart was going to explode. And
Jeez.
he said like he thought it would explode like it did when he was in Hollywood, but they lived in Oklahoma and they'd never been to California. He'd never had any heart problems. And so they get concerned, um and they start like questioning him like what about Hollywood? Like, and they start showing him things like books about Hollywood, like old Hollywood and things like that. And when they started showing him these books, like from the 20s and 30s and stuff, he would point out different actors in these pictures. And he would point out legendary ones like Marilyn Monroe, like Rita Hayworth. But then he would also point out like really lesser known people who like would never have been a household name, like maybe had like one movie appearance or one television show appearance, you know. And so one day they're flipping through this book, and Ryan, the kid, points to this image of a man in a picture, and he says like, "Mom, that's me, like I found myself." And like sure enough, they found. So he explained a scene from the movie. So it was a still picture from this movie called Night After Night. It was a 1932 film. And he's like, I found me. And then he goes on explaining this scene involving all these guns that were like hidden in a closet in a room. And so then the parents found the movie and they watched it. And this scene like happened exactly how the kid described it. And so the kid starts to go into more detail. He describes his former mother, like all of her hair, her appearance. He describes his sister. He describes his daughter. He describes that he was rich and had all of these expensive cars, like specific colors and models of cars, and that his house had a swimming pool. And he says that he lived on a street with the word rocks in the name. And and said that he was a good dancer on Broadway and traveled to Europe on a big boat and danced with all these pretty ladies and stuff. And so the parents are like, this is crazy. The film that he referenced, Night After Night, like the actor that he claimed to be, his name was Marty Martin, and the guy had one line in the whole film. It was his only film appearance, and then he became an agent in Hollywood after this. So the parents are like, there's no way our 4-year-old would know, like, this is 2002 or 2003 by now. They're like, there's no way he would know this Marty Martin, like from the 30s, who had one line in a film that was like not even a good film, you know?
I do think that that's like a pretty good shot in the dark, that like it matches up. But as far as like names that would be brought up by a little kid, Marty Martin has got to be like at the top.
What a terrible name.
Right? Well, no, they like he corroborated a lot of details from this guy's life. So the parents eventually found out that Marty had a daughter, and so she was still alive. She was like in her 50s at the time. And so they reached out to his daughter, and Ryan confirmed a lot of details with her, like would tell her things about the life. Like she didn't give him information, like he would give her information and then she would confirm it. So specific things about like what their family did growing up, like specific events of things that they did, or like specific people and their appearance and things like that. And they then found out that he did dance on Broadway. He did drive like these specific cars. He did have a house with a pool, and that he lived on a street that was called Roxbury Street. And so he had claimed that he lived on a street with the word rock in it. And so there's a lot of like skepticism with this, claiming like, oh, like what if the parents are grooming him, or like what if he just found out all this information on his own. But the daughter said that they took him, so the daughter would confirm all these details, and you know, he would confirm like, oh yeah, I was married 4 times, like these are the names of my wives. And then they took him to this doctor who is a popular doctor. His name is Dr. Jim Tucker. He's a children's psychiatrist, and he's worked with over 2,500 children who claim that they've like been reincarnated or have past lives. And so Dr. Tucker would show him, he would get like 15 old-timey pictures of women, and he would say, all right, like show me the 4 wives. And then he would pick out the 4 wives, and then the daughter would confirm, be like, yep, those are like that's my mom and my stepmom's. Like
There's
all
a
these.
children's psychiatrist that is showing old-timey pictures of women to children.
Yeah, he's doing research to try and find out the
Research.
science
I
behind.
gotta do some research.
What, why is that bad to show?
just a. It sounds. Some of these things just sound really funny to me. Like I'd never even considered of like what parents might do, or that parents might be involved with grooming their children to do this. Never even thought about that, but like there is some sick stuff that parents have done to take advantage of their kids. And so, I mean, it's just not out of. So that's where my mind was. And so then you started talking about a psychologist showing pictures of women to children and thought it was funny.
I don't think it's that weird. Like, to confirm these details of his life, like they they would also show him pictures of like classic cars, and he'd be like, "Yep, I own this one, this one, this one." They would show him pictures of like actors and stuff, and he'd pick out the actors and name them. So I don't think it's too weird. Like, I don't know. I think it's crazy more than anything. Like, because first of all, like even I have a 3-year-old, so this kid was 4, but I have a 3-year-old. I can't get her to sit still for 10 seconds. So if I tried to groom her, it would be impossible. Like, there's no way that I could groom her to remember all these details. First of all, like, I couldn't get her to sit still long enough to do it. And then second of all, like, I don't think she would remember it all with such clear recollection of it all. Like, perfect recollection of it. And just like all these things, there was a list, and I can't find it now, but I found a list of like all these different facts that the kid had corroborated about this guy's life. And he even corroborated the age at which he died. He corroborated how he died. He corroborated like all these details of things like that. That was to me like, there's no way that a 4-year-old would find all that out on his own. Who knows if he knew how to read at the time. Um, but like, I don't know. I don't see why parents would also groom their children for this specifically. I think that if they were out to get fame or like recognition, I think there's other ways that you could groom your children to be more in the limelight than like, hey, I was this unknown Hollywood actor from the 30s, like I just don't see it as like a parent grooming. So
You
to
never
me,
know.
yeah, you never know, but I just don't see that side of it. So to me, this one was really crazy because of all the details that he confirmed, and that the daughter like also corroborated a lot of the information, like a first-hand source from this guy's life was like, oh yeah, all this stuff is true. Like he's telling the truth.
Maybe he's just the luckiest kid on the planet.
Maybe.
And maybe we don't know. And there's no way to prove it.
Tell you what,
Right.
if we're if we're bringing the account of 3-year-olds into all this, I think that we could safely say that every 3-year-old has been reincarnated from a dog or a puppy and a cat, most likely. Only because, from what I've seen, Austin's daughter doing when it's time for her to be a puppy, like she is all in as a puppy.
Oh, speaking of that, the funniest thing today, we were in our bedroom, and Emmeline, my daughter, was in there with us, and the sun was shining in the window, and it like glared off my watch onto the wall, and she saw it. And I sat there with her for like more than 5 minutes and just ran that light across the wall, and she chased it for 5 minutes. I'm not even joking. Like, she chased it like a cat with a laser for 5 minutes. Yeah, it was so funny. But
Pretty
yeah,
crazy stories.
those are the stories. So
Okay,
like,
so what's your overall, like, if you were to give a quick yes or no, if like how much that you believe about it, or a final thought, what would it be, Jack?
I can't. I I don't know enough to say yes or no. I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to say anything bad about a religion. I personally, I don't know. wouldn't have believed it before today. But I mean, if all these stories are true, then I don't see another explanation. I've been reading a few of these other ones just on the side here. There's a bunch of short ones. Like this elderly man led a bunch of, what are they called? Archaeologists to a city that hadn't been excavated yet. And he told them that, he's like, yeah, I died right here. I was a guard. Somebody stabbed me with a spear. And he was able to lead them directly there, and he was able to tell them what the things they found were for. Because they were like, we have no idea what these tools are for. And he'd be like, he said he offered a plausible explanation regarding their uses. So, I mean, there's no way to tell if he's right or wrong, but it says that it baffled scholars for years, and he was able to offer one almost instantly. I don't know. I don't think you can make crap like that up. How was he able to find a literal ancient city that hadn't been excavated yet? He said he saw it on TV, like in the background. He's like, wait, that looks familiar. And then he led a team of archaeologists to it. That's crazy.
That's a new one I hadn't heard before. That's interesting.
Yeah,
What's like specific, quick details of that?
Let's see. His name is Arthur Flowerdew, and it said for his entire lifetime he was haunted with inexplicable and vivid memories of a city surrounded by a desert and a temple carved into a cliff. One day, while watching a BBC documentary on television, he saw one city of Petra, Jordan. To his amazement, the city matched the one in his head. After Flowerdew shared his story with several people, BBC reporters contacted him asking to put his story on television. Several archaeologists flew to Petra with Flowerdew. He recognized landmarks with ease, including sites that had not been excavated yet. When presented with ancient device, the purpose of which had baffled scholars for years, he offered a plausible explanation regarding their uses. After seeing a guard station, Flowerdew recalled that he had died there when he was stabbed with a spear. The experts who accompanied Flowerdew believe his claims of reincarnation, doubting someone would be able to fake or fabricate the breadth of knowledge he displayed. Flowerdew maintained that he had never studied the city previously and only heard of it upon seeing it on television. While Flowerdew could possibly have withheld information regarding his education, many believe that his story, or this is a true reincarnation story.
That's really interesting. Petra is like crazy, well known. I would say like more or less as well known as Stonehenge. Like it is, it's got tons of different like archaeological sites. But that's super interesting that he's able to be like, oh yeah, over in this area where no one's been looking, there's more.
It's crazy. I don't know. There's no other explanation in my mind, but I feel like that's something you'd need to study for your whole life to be able to talk about, pretty confidently. Like someone that's, been part of Hinduism or Buddhism for their entire lives and been studying this. I don't want to downgrade their research at all, but I just don't know.
So as far as like people that maybe don't know what Petra is like really, it's used pretty frequently in a lot of different movies, including like Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. It's like the desert, ancient city that's carved into the side of a mountain. It's in The Mummy. It's in Transformers. So it's like it's used pretty widely. And it still continues to be like a big site that they're finding more and more stuff, trying to figure out what it is that Petra was really used for. So that'd be really interesting to see exactly what Arthur said Petra, like what that site was back in the day.
Yeah, all the ones I'm looking at are they're like 2-paragraph stories of all of these. So they don't go into huge detail, so.
Side note, someday I want to do a podcast on, well, we could do multiple on like ancient civilizations and like Petra, Göbekli Tepe, like the Aztec pyramids, Mayans, Incas, like all that kind of stuff. It's like ancient Greece. Yeah, I want to do all of that.
Yeah, those are all super interesting. So what's your kind of final synopsis or take, Austin?
Fascinating topic. I don't know if I believe in like reincarnation in terms of having all these different lives and living in multiple life forms, but it's hard for me to deny these stories. I don't necessarily believe in the traditional idea of reincarnation, but is there some influence from the other side that's passing on details somehow in a way that we don't understand? I don't know. But I don't necessarily believe in the traditional reincarnation as it's posed in like Hinduism. So.
What I really like about the belief in reincarnation is that there is such it's really easy to look at the universe as like a cold, dark, inhospitable place that just churns out chaos and things happen randomly. And even if you don't believe in any kind of God, and there's some religions that don't necessarily believe in a supreme being or creator, but in this cycle of this life, there's something that is like really merciful about a universe that recycles that kind of spiritual life and allows it to progress into, I guess, a more pure form of that entity or whatever kind of material the soul is. So I think that there's something that is like really really optimistic and is it I think really taps into into motivation and drive into progressing and being that better kind of soul.
Right. I definitely agree with the idea of our consciousness or our soul like carrying on after this life and it existing before this life. Um, so I do agree that there is a continuation of like our soul or our consciousness, just not in this way of like taking on a new body or a new person. I will say though, one story close to my family, real quick. I won't mention who it was, but we had a close family member tell us he was an only child, and he told us that he had a brother. I don't know if he was stillborn or if he died right at birth, but his younger brother died, and so he grew up an only child. And then when his first son was born, he just had an overwhelming feeling that like the spirit that was in his son was that of his brother who had died. And so that spirit had like carried on and been placed in his son kind of thing, which is pretty cool. Like I don't know how to explain that, but um I have a hard time denying that person's like feeling of that. So
Yeah, it's hard to like knock on anyone's thoughts and beliefs when you're dealing with like, yeah, but I felt this and like when I thought about this, I had this feeling like that. I knew that that was what it was. It's hard to because you can never really tap into exactly what they were feeling at the time to understand what brought on that conviction. But in general, I think that at a minimum that any person at a minimum could hope that reincarnation is a thing, that there's a purpose to this life and it leads to something in the next life.
mm-hmm. Right. Any other final thoughts before we wrap up?
Oh man, I think that was pretty good. That's... Crazy stories, crazy thought. I don't know what to say. I don't know. What
This is definitely one that
crazy topic.
that like it's something that has come back to me many different times, wondering like, how do these stories or these experiences, how does this fit into my own belief and the way I see the world? And there's a little bit of a nudge and a little bit of a push of like, is there something else happening? It's interesting.
Right.
Again, we're not religious consultants, so don't believe what we say. Believe what you want or whatever you believe in.
You guys didn't get your religious consultant certification online?
No, it's got lost in the mail.
Was it Stevens Henniger?
I got my
Crap.
I got my free laptop with it. Even it came with it. Like I got it all set and ready to go for this podcast.
Did you even get to keep it after you graduated?
Well, I didn't quite graduate. We were working out the details. I might have to give it back, and something about paying 50%. I don't know.
Okay, I see. Well, this was fun. Hit us up. We're going to be posting on the social media weekly, and hit us up if you want us to talk about something specific, or if you have your own stories, or if we completely butchered the Hindu religion and you want to correct us. So
It's very possible.
Yeah, let us know what you guys think, and thanks again for the support.
We love you all.
Thank you so much, guys. Love talking with you.
Farewell, loyal followers.